designed their own websites to greatly improve the homework submission process. I'm thinking of the CISW courses.
Yep.
What is done in those courses is
That will not be
very
authorized. Yep. Yep. Those sites will not be.
So what about Moodle? Is that going to stay, or are they already taking that?
Moodle is probably going to be okay because it's already in the district. So, but basically anything other than this, would not be authorized. But the decision is to ensure your privacy as students, or at least that's.
It's
I think it's good and bad in a way.
I've drunk the D2L Kool-Aid, is what it is.
And it's spiked. That Kool-Aid is a little bit spiked there.
Yeah.
Because like all those third-party ones cost money, and I don't, and so I don't like having to pay for the extra. Besides the textbook, you got get the labs and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I like that, but I think the teacher ones, like Anthos has his one that he uses, those should be left. Those should be excluded from the, could be.
Well, we'll see how that goes. There's a district academic senate meeting tomorrow, and I'm going to go to that meeting and find out what they're going to talk.
Yeah, surely they would leave some kind of process for teachers to make their case and say, hey, this saves overhead, it saves students time, it saves me time, it provides more effective instruction. Make an exception.
Well, it's going to be an interesting discussion because the trade-off is getting sued by students who lose their privacy because some of these websites may not be the most secure. No, but there is a district in Arizona that got sued by its students, but it's a completely different thing because in that district, it's not a leak of an LMS or learning management system. So it's not your grade that got leaked. They leaked something to the level of PeopleSoft. So students, social security number, financial data, address, phone number, and all that stuff got leaked. That's a problem. And they were fined like $30 million as a result. Sorry?
Get rid of the shit run by PeopleSoft.
Yeah, but on a Moodle server, I don't store anything even close to that. I mean, you might store something into your own files that has that sort of data.
That's on you, what you store.
Yeah, but I don't need that. I just need your student ID and your name. That's all I need on the Moodle server. So if it does get leaked, it will just be your grade, for your homework assignment, not even your final grade. Because this does not really tie into the actual final grade registration process. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. I'm going to that meeting. We'll have a lively discussion, let's just say.
Or not, depending on who's there.
Well, they cannot not have a lively discussion. It's a public meeting. And I'm just an uninvited guest. But I'm perfectly legal. I can be there and ask questions. I'm just not invited.
Crashing the party there tag.
Huh?
Crashing their party there tag.
Exactly.
It would be nice if they are going to go that route, get rid of the third party stuff. At least offer comparable ones in house. So whatever, like the Cisco stuff, they can find
They can't. This will wait.
or commission.
Cisco won't buy. You have to use their learning tools, or they won't buy. You can't get credit.
So all our students will just be going to Sierra College
Yeah.
to take the Cisco classes. It's like, okay, we move on to the next one. All right. So let's go ahead and do your homework for this one. So after the discussion on last Wednesday, did you guys get a pretty good idea of how to do it and get it done?
No.
Yes?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and actually do that one. Okay, so I'm going to do the directional tracker homework assignment like last time. And the starting point is just a tracker itself, so I would use tracker as my starting point, which is kind of the intended starting point of your homework assignment. So start the emulator and get to Moodle. I mean, get to
recording, right?
AI2. It should be. Let's see. And it is recording. Yep. And one of these days they will ban these two, because they will say it's not ADA compliant.
Are they already trying to?
They tried a few times already.
They tried to do it to you.
Yeah, they don't like me.
You're interesting.
I'm a
ways of
troublemaker.
Protesting it.
I'm a troublemaker.
Yes.
Oh.
No one's making any trouble.
If I'm not causing trouble, I'm not doing my job hard enough.
Exactly.
That's my motto.
It's like there was a image I saw. It said, "If it ain't broke, you aren't trying hard enough."
Yep.
Well, she.
I will get to that. Let me get this one started first. Alright, so here's tracker. And here's the row sheet. I'm just reusing an older one, adding a 5th column to it. Alright. Okay, tracker already exists. Okay, so it's already here. So let's click on tracker. And hook up our virtual machine and get it started. Right. So what I'll do is I'll do it the kind of long way, which is not very organized, and it's kind of tedious. But after that, I will also switch to a slightly different way of doing the same thing, which I think is more organized. It makes your program easier to read also at the same time. So that's what we'll do today, at least for the first part. The second part, if we have time, I will also kind of teach you guys a technique to use a list picker, so that you can have one item in the list picker that says add new item. Okay, so we can kind of dynamically add items to a list picker, or at least to the underlying list structure corresponding to a list picker. So we'll do all that stuff today, and we're just waiting for the emulator to start up. Then we can at least go through the original program first, and then after that we'll go ahead and make the modifications. Yep.
For the emulator, is there a way for you to package the updated version of it so we don't have to update every time?
Once it updates, it should stay updated.
Not our copies.
If you have the portable version, if you have a portable version, it does not know where to store it. Yeah, okay, I'll think about it.
Okay.
The answer is yes, but I have to kind of work with it and find out how to do it. Okay, so here's the application, and the original application, which is this one here, is just really to drag the sprite around a little bit, and after a delay, it would redraw the trace of that sprite accordingly. So this is the basic code that you are allowed and you're supposed to start with. So what we want to do is to change the ball sprite into an image sprite, and then from that we'll also make it so that it points to the direction that it's traveling to. And to do that correctly, what we have to do is to move the center of the sprite and not the upper left corner of the sprite. That was the conclusion from our class last Wednesday. So that's what we'll do today. So as a result, what we'll do is we'll first introduce a image sprite to this particular program. So we go to drawing and animation, drag and drop a image sprite. Oh, I actually got one already. I can just go ahead and use it. I'm going to delete the new one and use the other one. And then we'll just go ahead and look for an arrow image not movie. And it still pops up. The minus?
Yeah.
Well, we'll just go ahead and pick an arrow here. So we'll pick either one, and this one is fine. So go to view image, and then click copy image URL. That would work. And then I use the GIMP to do all the editing. Here I can go to file, open, file from location, file, open location. You can put a URL directly into the GIMP, and that didn't work. Alright, we'll do the hard way.
There's an extension for it that has to be added to allow for support.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
Why they do it.
Why they even offer that as a menu item first.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's not a big deal. All right, so now we have the bitmap here, and we're just going to rescale that, just kind of like last time. We'll rescale it down to, let's see, the width is 300. We can make it about 60 or 50 pixels. So I'll rescale it down to 50 pixels across and 20 tall scale, and now we have a much smaller icon. Save the file, or I should say export. So make sure that we save gamma, because otherwise the transparency won't be saved. Save it, and then go back to my App Inventor to upload it. And this one is called wrong folder. This one is called just Arrow. Click open, click OK. Now it's uploaded. Make sure my image sprite is selected. Go to the picture and select arrow.png, and
You size it down.
sorry,
Where did you size it down? What size did you size it down?
I size it down to 80 by 50, I think. There we go. And this one, all right. So we got the arrow. You can make it even smaller, okay? Without changing the image file itself. You can certainly change the width here so that it's not automatic, and you can force it to be of a certain width when you have uploaded the picture. But I think downsizing it first before you upload is probably more efficient, because otherwise it will have to resize it or rescale it on the fly when it is already running in the app. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is to replicate all the logic that we have for the ball sprite onto the image sprite, because we want to use the image sprite for what we are doing here. So we'll go ahead and go to the blocks of this particular program, and the ball sprite has quite a few things that we are doing with it. The most important part is what happens for the timer, because this is the actual drawing part of the application. So if I were to be lazy and still be consistent with my homework description, I can actually just change this particular block here, so that I will be moving the image sprite instead of the ball sprite here. And in fact, it is not moving anything at this point, so I don't really have to necessarily delete anything. I just need to add something new to it. All right, so let's go to this part here and figure out what we're going to do. The first thing we need to do is to change the sprite so that it starts from the old position, and then we have to change its orientation so that it points to the new position, and then we can move it to the new position. So that's what we need to do here, and we'll do it the kind of long and clumsy way first, and then we'll try to figure out how to do it in a not so long and clumsy way. So we go to image sprite, and then we say, okay, we'll have to move the image sprite to a certain location, with each timer tick. So the one that we're going to use is the move to call here, and we'll put it before we draw the line. Okay. And the question is, where are we moving it to? Okay. The easiest solution, which doesn't work in this case, is simply to use the X and the Y that we use down here for the draw line thing. Okay. So we'll go ahead and do that first and see how it's not working, because last time I think did I demonstrate how it was not working? Sort of? No? Okay. So let's go ahead and try this one first and see how it is actually not going to work. So we right click here, duplicate this block, put it here, and we right click here, duplicate the block, and just put it here. So after we move it to the first point, we'll make it point to the second point. Okay, so that way the sprite would appear to be pointing to the other location. So we once again go to image sprite, but this time we make it point in the direction of XY coordinate, and this time this X and this Y is going to be the X2, Y2 of the line, which is my destination. So once again we right click, duplicate this block, and stash it here. And then we go to Y2, right click, duplicate, and then move that block accordingly to the Y here. All right. So this will be kind of like the easiest way to kind of quote unquote do the homework assignment. Good morning. Is there a problem?
You guys just set the alarm off.
Oh. They usually set it off or turn it off first.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
That was X2, Y2, right? Where you duplicated from.
Right, that should be X2, Y2. So we'll run the application first. Phew, I'm not under arrest for breaking and breaking and entering.
After one of us.
Wasn't me.
Alright, so let's see. Yep, so this is what you guys have been talking about, right?
Yeah.
It's pointing to the wrong place, and that has to do with it is not the XY coordinate of a sprite refers to the upper left corner before the rotation. Okay, that's the location of the sprite. But when it's doing the point to thing, it is using the center of the entire sprite as the first point, and then the point to refers to the point that it wants to point to, and that's why it's not going to work. Okay, last time I used the whiteboard to describe why it is not going to work. So what we need to do here is to fix the x1 y1, okay, which is this part here. The other part we can stay, okay, point in direction, that is perfectly okay. But what we need to do here is to fix this one here. And what we need to do is not just to move it to the xy coordinate of that I have stored in the list, but we want to move the upper left corner to an offset of these two coordinates of this xy here to take into consideration the dimension of the sprite image itself. Okay, and we have to use half the width subtracted from the x. We have to use half the height and subtract it from the y in order to come up with the right number. Okay, so remember I said I would do it in a clumsy way, and that's exactly what I'm going to do, is to do it in a very clumsy way first. So the clumsy way is extremely clumsy, okay, because what we have to do is to go to the math block here, and then we have to borrow a subtraction block, and we also have to get a division block here. The basic coordinate is still this part here, okay, so we got most of the math done correctly, except for half of the width of the sprite. So this part here is really just to calculate half the width of the sprite. So now we go to image sprite 1, and we scroll down the list to the width property excuse me, and put it into this slot, and then we want to divide it by 2, so we just type 2, and now we have the x part done right. The y part is about the same, so we take this out, go to math, do a subtraction block and a division block. What we had earlier, we go to the number to be subtracted, and then over here we have something similar to this, so I will go ahead and just duplicate this block here, and then change image sprite 1 dot width to height. There we go. All right, and oh, it didn't do it right because I have to get rid of the extra division block and put it here. Okay, so now it should be okay. So we'll go ahead and test this program just the way it is at this point, and see whether we have all the problems resolved at this point. So we'll go ahead and move the sprite around. Let's do a little figure eight thing, and you can see that the sprite is now doing the right thing. It is pointing in the right direction. Wherever we are going, it's pointing into that direction, and that's pretty much your homework assignment. It's just that part. Okay, but the code certainly doesn't look very good, does it? Okay, it looks pretty ugly. Okay, so are there any questions about this particular solution? Okay, it is clumsy. It is just duplicating a lot of blocks. So we are recalculating stuff over and over again. It's not efficient at all, but it gets the job done. Okay, the main idea is it gets the job done. The sprite is pointing into the right direction, along the path. So what we want to do now is to go back to the blocks and say, well, this looks really, really awful. I mean, if you just look at the code here, look at that stuff. I mean, it's just not, it's unsightly. Okay, so we want to change this and make this look a little bit better. So how can we make this look a little bit better? Well, the first thing we can do is certainly to use
Procedure.
we can use a procedure. We can also use variables, right? We can use variables to help us with this. I do want to do one thing is to check. Okay. All right. So what we'll do is let's write the procedure. I'm debating whether to change the procedure or just use a local variable first. We'll just go ahead and use local variables first, and then we'll clean it up and make it a procedure. Okay, so a local variable block looks like this in App Inventor 2. This block here. So what happens with this block is you can declare any number of local variables within this block. Now, as the name implies, a local variable stays local. Okay. So that means whatever variable you declare can only be used within this block here. Outside of this block, they do not even exist. Okay, so that's really nice because now you can reuse the same variable name all over the place. As long as those blocks are not nested, you don't even have to think about, oh, which one am I using? Okay, if they are nested, then it's the innermost one that is being used. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and pick this block and say, okay, we'll use local variables here. And this is how you can declare multiple variable names by just dragging and dropping additional names into this block here. So now I have two variables with this block. And you can always add some more later. You don't have to pre-decide exactly how many to use at this point. So the thing is I cannot have two x's. So if I want to name one y and the other one x, this is what I have to do. Change this one to y and then change the other one to x, like so. If you want to make it even more clear, you can say the xy of the point or something like that. Okay. I can also make two more for x2, y2, but for the time being, I'll just deal with these two. Okay. And then I go through my program and say, okay, which blocks are being duplicated a lot here. This block is getting duplicated here and here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just kind of move in this case because I don't really need to keep that one over there. So I just move this entire block over here. So this way, local variable x within this block will be initialized to that particular point. And I can do the same thing with the y coordinate. So I will right click here and then make another duplicate and just stash that one over here. Okay. Actually, this time I don't need a duplicate. I'm just going to do a delete. All right. So this is x and this is y, and then I can move the entire call block, over here, so that the moving of the image sprite and then changing of the direction of the image sprite and then the draw line will also be here. And you might notice that I have a empty slot here. This empty slot is here because I drag and drop the original block all the way over here, which also means my local variable x is now doing what that block used to do. So I can just put my x here, and then the other one, which used to be the y coordinate of the move to, I can just go ahead and drag get y over here, and it accomplishes exactly the same thing as what I had earlier. Now, it doesn't seem to be helping at this point because it's just like, well, we still have all the blocks around. It's just that with these two I can change the name. But look, this one is the same thing. Not in point in direction, but draw line. In draw line, x1, y1 refer to exactly the same x and the same y. So now I can change those as well. So I can remove this one, and I can now remove this one. Instead, I can now go to get x and get y, and I can just duplicate this block. My screen is not big enough, so it's not easy to.
Not so fast, please. Not so fast.
Sorry?
I'm a little slower right now.
Oh, okay.
So what did you just last do?
I just
Up there.
do another get x and get y.
On the other one, the upper.
On the other
The
one?
one you brought, yeah. So
Same
you
thing.
You took what we just made,
We made two local variables x and y,
right? I got
so that we drag those blocks over here, so that we have local variable x, that is the x of the originating point, and then variable y is the y of the originating point.
How did you get it to? How did you get it to make it to? To make it two names.
You go to this little icon here.
Yeah.
You click it, and it will give you a screen that looks like this, and you can just drag the name into here. Then it will make more variables as you need. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So the program is a little bit better now because I'm using the x1, y1. Instead of the entire block, I just have xy here. And I can do the same thing with x2, y2 because those two blocks are also replicated in this code. So if I want to do the whole thing, let's do it as an exercise, okay? So we'll go ahead and make x2, y2 as my local variable. So I just drag and drop it twice, like so. And then change the names because I don't want x3, I want y2 instead of x3. So we'll go ahead and change that name. And now with these two extra local variables, I can drag and drop the initialization from here and also from here. And as a result, I don't need those two big blocks anymore. So these two I can also get rid of because they are actually just replicates of the ones that I just dragged over to the other side. And now I can just use x2, y2 throughout my entire code. So we have x2 here, and we want to. My screen is really not big enough for this. But if I make it any smaller, it becomes difficult for you guys to see. So I can live with this. It's just the get block. There's a keyboard shortcut to do the same thing too.
So
There we go.
you moved the call draw line up to the initialized local variable. Is that what you did?
Say again. My initialization looked like this. I have the x1, y1,
I see.
and then we have the x2, y2 of the points.
I see. Okay. So
And then the program is now a whole lot easier to understand because I don't have those big, huge blocks anymore.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, it's all getting recorded, so we can always kind of watch this again, after the fact.
And you're gonna post the save, right?
I can post it. Sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and run the program just to make sure that I did not copy and paste. Oh, great.
Crash.
It likes to crash a lot. Okay, so we'll just reset and start the emulator again. Here we go. But you can see how the use of local variable can be helpful because it does make your really, really big program, to be a lot smaller and easier to read at the same time.
How did you?
Sorry?
How did you initialize x1 and x2? Can you show me that again?
Not right now because it's still
that's right,
starting up
that's in your
again.
recording.
It is all being recorded.
How do we watch those recordings? I'm curious.
You go to youtube.com/someprofs.
Some profs.
Some professors,
SUM
some profs.
Okay.
So since the other one is still starting, I can just show you this one. So you just go to some profs, which is my channel name. And it includes, if you go to videos, it has, well, apparently Carol has posted some of her stuff here just recently.
Oh yeah, that's what you do.
Yep. But the other ones are mine. So if you look up the date code, which is 2014, 09 for September, 10 for October, and then the day of month, and then the class code, that's, all the stuff is here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Sure. I think this should be, the emulator should be up. Yep, there we go. So we got the application up and running. So we'll go ahead and give it a try. Because I need to make sure that my changes did not change the logic of the program. Occasionally I make a stupid mistake, copying the wrong block, to be my local variable. But everything is still working okay, it is working the way it's supposed to. Okay? So you can use this as your starting point, okay? You can use this as your starting point. There are some things you have to change to, but this is not one of them. Okay, so having done this, or having said this also, the next thing I want to do is to say, well, it seems like we have to do this stuff a lot, okay? Because every time we move a sprite, we want to move the center of the sprite to the coordinate, not the upper left corner of a sprite. So it seems to me that we're going to have to do this a lot, okay? If you have to do the same thing a lot all over the place, like there will be multiple places in your program, you'll be doing almost exactly the same thing, it is a good time to think about using what we call a subroutine, okay? A subroutine is simply a chunk of code that has its own name. And you can just invoke that name from anywhere in your program and say, I want to do that, okay? And not having to spell out the details of what you actually want to do. You just say, okay, I want to do what that block is containing. Okay, so let's go ahead and consider that, concept of using a subroutine. So what I'll do is I'm going to move all the way down here and define my, subroutine to do a certain thing. To declare a subroutine, which is also called a procedure in Pascal, that's a terminology borrowed in Pascal from Pascal, Algol, and all the related languages from Professor Worth, Dr. Worth. It's also called a function in C and C++, and in Visual Basic, I believe it is called a function. Is that right? Or subroutine, just for sub. Both. A sub does not return anything, a function does. Is that kind of the differentiation? So it has many different names, but it is really boiled down to the same thing. There are two types of procedures. One can give you a result, the other one does not. Okay, in this case, I'm not doing a calculation. I just wanted to do something, and that's how you do it. Sorry?
Method and functions.
This is actually a function. It is not a method. It does not tie itself to a class, because in AI2 there's no such thing as a class. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll first change the name of the procedure. The name procedure is extremely generic and doesn't tell you what it is, what this block of code is going to do. So instead, I'm just going to say move center of image sprite. Okay, so that kind of describes what this chunk of code is supposed to do, is to move a image sprite but using its center as the originating point instead of the upper left corner of the sprite. Okay, and with any type of subroutine, you can also use this little icon here to add what we call parameters. A parameter is essentially some additional information that you need to process to finish the processing. Look at a parameter as a field inside a form. Okay, when you go to the DMV and you're applying for whatever, okay, let's say a new license plate. Okay, you cannot just say walk over the counter and say, I want a new license plate. That's basically calling a procedure. Okay, you're telling someone to do something for you. Okay, do you know how to go through the internal procedure of DMV to get a new license plate? Unless you have worked there before, you probably don't. And nor do you care, right? You just wanted the other person to say, okay, give me a new license plate. That's basically the same thing as just calling or invoking a subroutine all by itself. But guess what? The DMV employee is not going to be able to do anything because that employee needs information from you, right? Your license, the vehicle, VIN, possibly your own driver's license number, your address, and stuff like that. After all, the license plate needs to be made and be shipped to you, so they need your shipping address. Those are the parameters. Those are additional information that is needed to finish the request. So is everybody okay in terms of the concept of what is a parameter in the context of a procedure, function, subroutine, whatever you want to call that? Okay, just additional information. So in this case, I need 3 pieces of additional information. I'm going to try this one, see if it works out. So I'm going to drag and drop 3 things here. And don't worry, I know the names are really, not very useful, but we can change that later. So I have 3 things here. The first one is going to be the image sprite that I am moving. And so we'll put it here. And then the second one is the new x coordinate of the center of the image sprite. And then the third one is going to be the y coordinate of the new image sprite. So this is something that's new. I've not done this before. I think it can be done. I'm not quite sure whether it can be done or not. So we'll give it a try.
On field testing. On field testing.
Field testing, exactly. Well, it does make it a lot better than the alternative, because the alternative is not to use image sprite as a parameter, and I will have to hard code it so that one procedure will deal with the drone, one will deal with the missile, and one would want to deal with the circle. Okay, I want to use the same procedure for all three sprites. Okay, so I'm being a little bit ambitious here. All right. So inside here, I'm going to use two variables. Okay, so I go to variables and I will declare two local variables here, and one will correspond to 1/2 of the width, and the other one will correspond to 1/2 of the height of the image sprite itself. So we'll call this half width, and the other one half height. All right. So after the local variables are declared, I don't need to show this screen anymore, so I can just click this and hide it. Now here comes the moment of truth. Can I get the width of image sprite, which is a parameter? That may or may not be doable. Okay, so we'll go ahead and try it. So what I'll do is I'll go to a particular sprite, doesn't matter which one, but we'll go to image sprite 1 and go to the width property of this thing. Oh, I need a division 2, so we go to math and get the division operator. Just divide by 2. And then we'll just drag this one into here. And here's this is the real test. Okay, this is the easy part. Specify a 2 divided by 2. And nope, doesn't let me do it. I can't associate image sprite to whatever I want to extract the width from. So this is really kind of like a bother, because now I can only have one procedure for each sprite, which is a bummer. Okay, but the limitation is here. I can't really get around this particular limitation.
Could you initialize image sprite? Could you initialize another?
It doesn't know that image sprite is a image sprite. That is the problem. So it won't give me the option to extract the width property of it.
I showed that when I was
Within
trying.
You have tried it?
Could you pass it its width and height? Pass the procedure, the width and height of it.
I suppose you can do that. That's the okay, so given that we cannot do this, we can get rid of the local variables. Okay. And change the way we pass the parameters. So instead of passing the entire image sprite in, I'm going to pass the width and the height of the image sprite that I'm dealing with. But I still have to move the image sprite itself, so it's still not going to solve that particular problem. Let me see one thing first. I can get to image sprite itself, but I can't plug it in. Maybe I can. Okay, I'll try one more thing first before I give up on this one. Let me try
You can't
this.
initialize image sprite to
image sprite
sprite
1.
1. and then
Yeah.
divide
Sorry?
that by-
Set image sprite to image sprite 1. Does that work?
But then it will always be set to that one. There's no other way to change it.
There's a little plus thing down there that says any component.
Say again?
There's a little plus on the sidebar that has any component. Any image sprite. Or any,
Image sprite. Oh, okay, that's good. So I can use the parameter as a component and get to it that way. Excellent. Thank you. That's exactly what I need. Okay, we'll get rid of.
Just rename them.
It won't let me get rid of just one,
Yeah.
There you go.
and now I can toss that one.
You gotta drag it back into the gray box. It's kind of good.
Okay, so I can use that. Thank you. I forgot about the any component part. All right, so we can now do it. Excellent. So we'll now have to calculate both the half height and the half width. So those are still local variables, and we'll have two of those. first one is called a half width, and the second one is a half height. This is okay, that's just a warning message. All right. So the half width is going to be the width of half of the width of the image sprite, and the trick to do this is to use any component, which is kind of interesting. It's basically a casting operator in C++ or Java. We are taking any image sprite here, and we say we want to get the width of an image sprite. So you just kind of locate image sprite in uppercase dot width. Actually, picking any one of these we can select width later on, but I'll just pick the right one first. So image sprite dot width, and we still need a division block, so we'll go to math and pick the division block here. And then we put the width into the first component of the division box, and then we have we'll have it divide by 2. So the 2 is the easy part. 2 key. There we go. The key part here is who is the component. Okay. In other words, it is saying I am getting the width of an image sprite. Okay. The question now is whose width am I dealing with? It's my parameter, image sprite with a lowercase I. Okay, so let me tell you, let me drag this one over first, and then we'll explain it. That's how we do it. In other words, we are basically saying when we get image sprite inside the procedure, we have no idea what it is. Okay, somebody could have erroneously passed a number instead of image sprite, into here. So by doing this part here, the green little block here is basically saying, okay, look at image sprite as a parameter. Okay, double check and make sure it is in fact an image sprite component. If it is, go ahead and give me the width property of that particular component. That's what this little block is doing. Now, it is a big thing because now we can write the same procedure, one single procedure, to do with all 3 sprites instead of doing one for one sprite and the second one for the second sprite and the third one for the third sprite. We have one single procedure that can move an image sprite to its exact center without having to deal with all the details on a per image sprite basis. The other part is easy. The y or the image height is the same thing, except it's divided by 2. So we'll just have to rearrange things a little bit here. Connect.
Yeah, I was having problems with that too, like making pieces click exactly right. I don't know why it was just drawing weird.
Yeah, but we have to change the width to a height. It won't click. I think has to do with what is in the background. Maybe it's getting confused because of that. Okay. So the next question is, what if I pass something wrong? What if I did not pass an image sprite into this particular procedure? It will give us what we call a runtime error. Okay, so your application is not going to run, and it will just complain and say, oh, a particular parameter is not right, or we cannot turn something into an image sprite. But it will basically run it. It will report it as a runtime error. Okay, which is kind of a bad thing because you won't know there's a problem until you run the program. Okay, now we have xy, the half width, and the half height. We can do everything now, right? Because all that is left to do is to once again go to any image sprite, and this time we use move to. And the component itself is just going to be image sprite, which is our parameter. And then the xy is going to be x minus half width and y minus half height, respectively. So we go to math, and we select the subtraction block, and duplicate it. Sorry? Yep, so now we select x, go here, half width, to go here, y to go here, and half height to go there. That should be it, okay? So now we have a new method, or what we call a new procedure, to move an image sprite using a center. Okay, so the center of this image sprite will be moved to the xy coordinate. without this, we can move only the upper left edge or corner of an image sprite. With this, we can move the center of an image sprite. So what we'll do next is, at this point, we can write whatever we want here, but because the procedure is not being called, it's not being used or invoked in the program, it's just basically dormant, it's not being useful. So what we'll do is we'll just go here and say, let's be brave and try out. Okay, so one thing to be not so brave is to right click and deactivate this one first. So we'll just go ahead and disable this block so that it is inactive. Then we can add the procedure call, so that if one doesn't work, we can fall back onto this one. Okay. So now we can go to procedures, and you can see a call block now. Okay, so that we put a call block here, and then we say, okay, oh, but how do we specify the image sprite? You go to the component image sprite one, scroll all the way to the bottom, and it has one little block that has a simple name of just image sprite one. That is what we need to specify the parameter to image sprite of the procedure. Okay, the XY coordinate is just the original XY coordinate that we have already calculated here. So we just do that. See, the problem is it doesn't scroll when the component is already at the edge. That's actually a way to specify a block if you just type it. Like, if you select a block, you can probably type get. Nope, that doesn't do it. Okay, so we have Y here. All right. So the program is now done because I have my procedure. I wrote the content of the procedure, and I now have a call to the procedure. Okay, the call of the procedure is basically someone standing over the counter of DMV and ask the person over the counter, the employee, to do something. Okay, so that's a call to basically say, okay, let's do it now. Let's see whether we can get this to work. So we switch back to the emulator. Hopefully it has not crashed, and we'll repeat the experiment. Okay, let's do a little figure 8 and see if this is now, yay, it's working.
That's faster.
Is it? It's a little bit faster, but hopefully not by a whole lot. All right. So we have now turned this program into a smaller program, and also it's easier to deal with, because trust me, this is going to be helpful to you in your new project. So I'll go ahead and describe the new project now. Now, for those of you who think, oh, we got this code done already, let's get rid of this one. Well, if you don't want to get rid of this one, even at this point, but you don't want to show it because it's just kind of distracting, you can right-click on it and collect this block. So that way it becomes just a little single block height type of thing. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It is inactive, it's not doing a single thing, but when you need it back, it is still here. Yep.
What I do is I take like a procedure block and put any code I'm not going to use inside of it, just push it over, and then just basically disable and collapse. That works.
So you have a recycle bin basically.
Basically, yeah, holding cell.
A holding cell recycle bin that you can go back and say, I don't
want to permanent delete it,
right.
but I don't want to use it right now.
You can also use the project management tool, sort of,
yeah.
And basically instead of using save project, you can save project as. In the older version, they have a check. Oh, this one has a checkpoint too.
Yeah.
So
I
checkpoint
like
also works.
I like
so
that.
you can basically save a quote unquote copy of it, but without
At
changing
that
the
point,
actual name.
yeah.
Yep.
Like git commits, basically.
It's kind of like a get commit.
Yeah.
Yep. So that it leaves a history of this particular program. So this is also a good point to make. Is to when you click this one here, it will give you a default name of tracker1_checkpoint1. And then when you click OK, it doesn't change the project that you're working on. It is simply saving this as a clone, as a copy of the original project, but I'm still working on Tracker right now. I'm not working on Tracker_checkpoint1. I'm actually still working on Tracker. Okay, so I can perform any further changes to the original project, but in case I need to fall back onto a previous version, that works up to a certain point, I now have checkpoint 1 as my fallback point. Okay. Now checkpoint 1 is a full up project. It is not just the delta or the difference between the latest version and the snapshot. It is a full up project. So you can actually download tracker underscore checkpoint 1 as an entire project, and upload it to your other account, on AI2, and it will still work. So this is a really good way of quote unquote backing up your homework assignment when you're still working on it. Okay, so you're working on it, something is working, but it's not entirely done yet. Make a checkpoint. Okay, so later on, if you make some additional modification and it somehow broke an earlier program or an earlier version, you can at least look at the earlier version and say, oh, okay, what are the differences? What did I change? And it also helps in this case to have two browsers. Okay, one Firefox and the other one Chrome. So this way you can open up both projects and look at those projects side by side and compare. There are ways to open up multiple profiles from Chrome. Okay, it's not easy as far as I know. Does anyone know an easy way to do it?
Canary.
Huh?
To do what?
Canary.
Canary?
Yeah, that runs independently of the main Chrome.
Okay.
One.
Can you open up as many instances or as many profiles as you want?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know Chrome supports your profiles. You can actually make new
Yeah.
profiles, but it's just not easy
No.
to start up the multiple profiles.
No, it's not. The easiest is just to have Canary installed side by side with your regular.
But
Chrome
Firefox
one.
is easy. With
Yeah,
Firefox, you
Firefox,
can start up the
it's,
profile selector.
Yeah,
There's a
you can-
there's a command line switch to
command
do it.
line, Yeah,
Yep.
you can actually set up in your Windows. I haven't figured out how to do it with Linux yet, but you
Yeah, I
actually
think
tell
it's
it to start
dash,
one profile and then link it up to the icon.
Yep.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yep, I do it all the time, so it's easy. Every time I start up Firefox, they ask me, which profile do I want to run. So as long as you're running different profiles, you can start up AI2 using different accounts. All right, so this is your starting point. So let me go ahead and save this project first. So we'll go to My Projects, select Tracker, export to my computer. Okay, it's called Tracker 1 in parentheses 1. I can fix that later. That's no biggie. Go back to Moodle. Sorry, I have to scroll real fast here because I have to turn on editing and then add it back as a new file. So we'll go to here, add an activity. This is a file. This is a tracker done. This is the starting point of the second assignment related to tracker. Upload the file. It's right under my own downloads folder. Tracker_1. And I can save the file name, now as a tracker directional. Okay. So when you download it, it will be downloaded as tracker_directional. Save and return to course. Right. So we have it done here. Okay, so this is the starting point of your second homework assignment, which is directional tracker that shoots. Now, this part is up to you, what kind of animation or bitmap you want to use. You can use a, is it called a duster? The airplanes that drop, pesticide and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you can take an image of a duster and program and use a sprite, of, let's say, a spider. Okay, so your duster can launch a spider, it will get to a destination. Okay, let me just kind of read the description of this homework assignment. So using tracker with directions, and I have already just uploaded that one to Moodle as a starting point. This time add 2 image sprites to the project. Keep these image sprites hidden until they are needed. Okay, bad grammar here because I'm dealing with multiple image sprites because I actually went back and changed from one additional image sprite to two additional image sprites. During the actual flight of the original sprite, not during the drag event. Okay, so when your drone is actually flying during that time, if the user touches somewhere else on the canvas, other than the sprite actually in motion, use the third sprite to mark the position and launch the second sprite to that coordinate. Does everybody understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
So when your drone or when your duster is still flying, okay, the user has the option to touch somewhere inside the canvas. Wherever the user touches, okay, you will mark that location using the third sprite. And the third sprite does not move at all. It's just an X mark or whatever you want to use to kind of locate the target coordination. And then the second sprite is the one that is going to move. It will originate from the current location of the first sprite, which is the drone, okay? And you can program, its flight to the destination using, the heading and also using the speed of a sprite itself, okay? So let's go back to the properties of a sprite so I can tell you exactly what properties you have to use for the second sprite to make it move autonomously. So this time, it doesn't involve, actually you doing anything. When you are working with an image sprite or a ball sprite, you can specify the heading, you can specify the interval, and you can then program the speed. As soon as the speed is non-zero, the sprite will move by itself. Okay. So in this case, whatever speed you specify here will be the number of pixels that this sprite will move automatically in the direction of heading every 100 milliseconds. So that will basically boil down to 10 times per second. So 10 times per second, your sprite will move in this direction, and this is in degrees, by this many pixels with each update. So use this feature, okay? Because you don't need to, identify, how to get to the destination. Okay, so it's just a straight line. Okay, just a straight line from the drone sprite to the third sprite, which is the target coordination. Okay, but that's not the end of your entire homework assignment. Account for the fact that the XY coordinate of an image sprite is the upper left corner, but rotation is around its center. Use the math we discussed to move the center of a sprite instead of its upper left corner. So this time I want you to apply this to all three sprites. Okay, not just the one that flies around the drone, but also the thing that it shoots out. When the second sprite touches the third, stop the second sprite. You can add sound effect and or changes the images of the sprite to make it more fun. So if you have a duster and it launches a spider to a bug, okay, you can display a picture of the bug getting eaten by the spider. Something like that. And make a slurping sound. Yeah.
So I'm a little confused on the third sprite. Is that already stationary on the screen?
It is stationary, yep, but it does not appear on the screen until you click it. Okay, so your application is going to be about the same as the one that we have right now. The ball sprite, you can just leave it the way it is. Okay, the ball sprite, you can just leave it. So initially you basically drag the ball sprite, to basically plan the flight path of the drone, right? So the ball sprite is going to be dragged on the screen, kind of like this, and the ball sprite will end up here. So you don't have to modify anything about the drag event. You can just leave it the way it is. When you're here. Okay, so when this is all done, when the drag event is done, then the ball sprite will be at the destination, and then at this time your drone is going to fly, following that path, right? So if you have a little, if I use my arrow as my drone, the arrow will basically move, by itself using the existing code that I uploaded today. So let's just say that when the arrow is at this point here, whether you draw the line is optional too at this point. Okay, so let's say that when the arrow is at this point, I touch somewhere else on the canvas, like right here. Okay, so when I click here, the third sprite will basically appear right here. Okay, and that's stationary. That it only has to appear, and basically the center has to be on the spot where I touch in the canvas. But at the same time, the second sprite will quote unquote launch from this to here. So in this case, I will have a spider launched from this location, and the spider is programmed to use the attributes that we talked about, the heading, the speed, and also the update interval to get to my third sprite. Now when they collide, okay, you have to stop this one, and then you can optionally change the image and also make a sound, to make it more fun. So that part is up to your imagination. I said the slurping sound because that's how spiders eat insects.
So,
Yep.
your touches of the mouse
Right.
create the target, and the drone is supposed to automatically sense the target and do what it needs to do. Correct?
The drone is going to continue its own path.
Right, but it's
Right.
going to sense the target. By the program, because you're saying the mouse is going to be used to create targets, or one target in this case.
Yeah,
the
you
bug,
click
or
it.
the bug.
Right. You touch
and
it.
once you're done with that,
Mm-hmm.
the drone immediately automatically senses that and shoots it.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted
Yeah,
to-
but whatever you
you're not-
shoot
you're
it
not
with,
gonna
in this
be-
case a spider,
so-
that is not. It doesn't go instantaneous to the target. It just goes step by step until
right,
it gets
it's
to the
kinda
target.
opposite of asteroids, where you're
Right,
creating
you
the
can use an
targets,
asteroid.
You're not shooting the targets.
Correct.
But you're creating the targets to be shot. Okay.
Right.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Are there any other questions about this part? Okay, the next version of this is going to have obstacles. So you basically have to plan your drone to kind of navigate around obstacles, and then your projectile cannot go through obstacles. So you can only shoot when there's an opening. Hey, if they can sell Flappy Bird on on Android devices and iOS devices, this can make you lots of money. You just have to beat the rest of the class to the market. But
It just seemed to me that the third sprite should, at least in like the final version of the game, they should already be on the screen. Because the way it is now, you're saying that
Correct.
you are creating them
yes.
when you're touching.
Well, the sprite is already created. It's just hidden. It's not visible. So when you touch it, you have to change its location and also change the property of hidden, so it's not hidden anymore.
Okay.
But it has to be somewhere on the screen. It's just not visible at all at the time
And
before you touch it.
It appears wherever you touch down.
Correct. Yep. So when you touch here, then you have to first move the coordinate, so it's here, and then you make it appear.
So if you code this right, there's no way your shot is the target.
That is correct. Yep. That is correct.
Unless you intend to.
Now, obviously, later on, this can move too. The third sprite can move on its own. So if you miss, then your projectile will just kind of touch the edge of the entire canvas, and you lose it. You lose one shot, basically. As I said, if Flappy Bird can sell, so can this.
Maybe you have in the upper right-hand corner or something the number of shots you have.
Eventually, we can.
Have it where.
Well, it doesn't even have to be inside the canvas. It can be a
Outside
label
the canvas,
outside of the
yeah.
canvas to keep score. Yeah. Or to reset the game and stuff like that.
And have it turn like a black icon to a gray one once you've used it.
Yep.
Something like that.
Go ahead.
The other question I have is, you were saying initially, the drone will be sort of already pre-programmed to go on a mission
Yes.
towards a certain area.
The drone is still doing what it is doing here.
Is it supposed to change positions to the new? In other words, it can only shoot from the front, right? So
Nope.
is it supposed to
No.
change
It can
positions?
shoot from any position.
Okay, so it's still going to the invisible original sprite that you had set it to go to, correct?
Not quite sure what you're asking.
Okay, so there's the second sprite over there on the far right. And
Okay.
you originally have the drone going to that area. Okay. Is the drone supposed to change position and go towards?
No.
Okay.
No, the drone is basically, the code that I have for the drone already does not need to be modified at all. You're going to add additional code, okay, to deal with the touchdown event of the canvas while the drone is already in flight, okay? And then use that event to trigger the moving of the third sprite and the appearance of the third sprite.
So initially,
And also trigger the second sprite to start to move in that direction.
So initially, you're actually going to be using the mouse pad to move the drone in a certain way.
Exactly the same way as this particular app right now, the way it is.
Right.
So you're just adding some additional code so that while the drone is still in motion, if you click anywhere on the canvas, it will
When
make
enemy
the third
appears,
sprite appear as the target,
it will
and then the
shoot.
second sprite will move to that target. Yep. And you can utilize the procedure that I have already written for this one, so that will make your code a little bit easier, because you're supposed to move the center of the image sprite, but since I have the procedure to do exactly that, you just have to make use of the procedure to use that. Any other questions about the homework assignment? Maybe I'll do a little screen recording. I will write the app first, do a screen recording, so this way you guys know exactly what it's supposed to do. Right. Any other questions? No one thinks this is particularly fun because it's homework assignment. You can make it Halloween. Add a Halloween theme to it. Exactly. I would use
Broomstick.
make a vampire, and then a vampire bunny and a carrot. That would be kind of fun. Has anyone read that book? It's called. It's a bunny, but it's a vampire.
Yeah.
What is it again? Bunny killer. Yeah, bunny killer. It's funny. It's seen from the perspective of a dog, right? It's written by a dog, after they adopted a pet rabbit, which is a vampire. So the way the vegetables get eaten is they get pale. They get sucked out, yeah. So you can use that as a theme. That would be kind of a fun theme for kids to do it too. All right.
Sell it on Google Plus and Amazon.
Sorry?
Sell it on Google Play and Amazon.
Oh, the book?
No, the app.
Oh, the app?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
you've heard what Google Play is doing now. They're now publicly displaying your address. You give it to them for if you want to sell apps. You don't have to do it for the free ones, but you're paying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to provide an address.
Yeah, I think they always require that. Maybe not, huh?
No.
Before they only need a way to pay and be
Uh-huh.
paid.
Yeah, because of some legislation that passed recently, like September 30th, I think it was.
Uh-huh.
They're now, but it's stupid because a lot of people, don't want their home address displayed.
I'll just use my ARC address.
There you go. You just have to have a valid way of contacting you. Or you just go sell them through Amazon. Their one, they don't require it. It's
Interesting.
nice. Free stuff through Google Play, sell them through Amazon.
Ah, interesting. All right. So the new topic today, we have about 7 minutes or so to talk about this. Oh, if you came in late, the roll sheet is here, so you might want to do this afterwards. We have about 15 minutes before the next class starts, so we got some time. This is something that is new. I just recently added this one, and it talks about how to use the list picker, because a lot of times, your application may present let's say 5 default choices to your end user, and say select one of these 5 choices, okay, and they're just by default the usual choices. If your application may require the end user to be able to add additional choices, then you want to have one last item of the list to say add new item, add new choice, or something along that line. So this slide talks about how to do that. Okay, how do you add dynamically add a new item to your list, from a list picker, and how do you integrate the new item into not just the list picker itself, but to the original list that supplies the items to the list picker. Okay, so that might be useful for certain applications. It may not be useful to all applications, but for some applications, this may be useful. For instance, if you have a recipe, cooking recipe type of application, you might have a list of default categories of ingredients, which covers, let's say, 85% of all the cases. But what about the other 15? What about your specialty things that people do? Well, you can now add a new category using this mechanism. Now, obviously, this works well, with being able to save your data onto a TinyDB, or have some other way to transmit it, and store it on a remote web server or something like that. Because otherwise, you can do all of this stuff here. The moment your application is, killed from memory, all of this stuff is going to disappear too. Okay, so this only is useful if you can save the new list or the new items, when your app is terminating, or when it is when you click on a button and it syncs with whatever server it is supposed to sync to. So, are there any questions about the objective of what this particular document is about? I don't have enough time to today. I don't have enough time to show you how to do it. But the steps are here. So for those of you who are slightly more adventurous, you can go ahead and give it a try. Okay, just try it out. Okay, and see if you can follow the steps and do it. There are no screenshots. Okay, with screenshots, I feel that it's a little bit too, in a way, too easy. Okay, so without any screenshots, but I do name the blocks accordingly. Okay, so there are names of the blocks that you will need in order to get this done. All right. Any other questions? Any questions related to your project? Have you guys been thinking about the project, with all the new tools and new concepts that we have been talking about? That should be able to kind of add something to your project. So the new updated proposal or revision to your project proposal will be done in, say, about a week or so. I will give you that as a homework assignment, so that you can basically revise what you're planning to do with your project. But this time you can give me more details. You can even tell me the details, like the features of your application, not just why somebody wants to download it, what is the value of the application, but this time you can tell me more detail, like, oh, I will have a screen like this, there will be a button to do this, and when the button is clicked, it will do something like that, and so on. So you have to give me more description of what your project is going to do. Yep.
So if you have, say, 2 modules, should you have 2 flowcharts?
2 modules.
In other words, that's kind of how you had us turn it in the first place, by modular design. 2 blocks.
Okay.
If you have 2 blocks, should you have 2 flowcharts?
You mean 2 use cases?
2 use cases.
I just want you to describe it in words. I don't necessarily want you guys to use flowcharts to describe it.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Any questions about the new homework assignment? No? Okay. All right. Well, if there are no questions, I'm going to end today's class right now, and I'll have the lecture uploaded right away, so the people who want to watch it.
Can I ask?
Yep.
Update it.
Yep.
Can I ask what the difference between a use case and a module diagram is? Is there much difference?
Okay.